Hi, I'm Brooke Orr from Brooke Orr Consulting, and today's subject is Growing Up Nourished, helping kids trust their bodies. I'm so glad you're here. If you've ever felt stressed about whether your child is eating enough, or is eating too much, or is only eating beige foods, or is only eating carbohydrates, or is only eating under the table, this episode's for you. Today, we're going to talk about how to raise kids who trust their bodies, kids who feel confident around food. They understand their hunger cues, and they grow up without the pressure and guilt that so many of us inherited. Parents today are swimming in advice. Some of it's helpful, a lot of it's confusing, and a lot of it is rooted in diet culture. A lot of times I hear from parents, I just want to get this right. I've struggled with my own relationship with food for as long as I can remember. Or, I don't want my kids to have to diet the way I've always dieted, or to hate their bodies the way I've hated my body. Or I want my kids to have a healthy relationship with food, but I feel like I'm failing. But the good news is that kids are actually born knowing how to eat intuitively. We don't have to teach them everything about eating. We don't have to even teach them the science of nutrition unless they're interested in it. What we have to do is protect what they already know. This episode will give you tools, language, and confidence to bring peace to your home around food. So let's talk about what an intuitive eater looks like in a child. They know when they're hungry, and they know when they're full. So I don't know about you, but my kids will come to me sometimes 20 minutes after a meal, and they say they're hungry. For an adult, we're like, oh, you ate 20 minutes ago. This can't be. This doesn't doesn't line up with the rules that we have in our book. But kids know. There's always questions you can ask here, open-ended questions. Where do you feel the hunger? Is it in your stomach? That way you can see, are they bored or is it something else? But we always honor that hunger by letting them try something. Intuitive eaters and children, intuitive eating looks like enjoying food without guilt. There's not a lot of little kids that say after Thanksgiving, oh, I should not have eaten that cookie. I feel so bad. That's something we learn as an adult, and hopefully we don't pass on. They can sit at a table with fun foods and not fixate. I don't know about you, but there was always a kid in my class who was never allowed to have sweets. And at every party we went to, the only place they would stand was at the dessert table, eating a ton of desserts. Maybe it's what they needed. Maybe it didn't make their stomach hurt. I would assume it did. But the issue was they were fixated on it. An intuitive eating child doesn't feel pressure to perform or please anyone about their eating. They don't feel like they're going to make mom happy if they clean their plate. They eat what their body needs. They trust that their body will tell them what to do. So what gets in the way of kids being intuitive eaters? If we were all born that way, or most of us, I want to go ahead and say there can be medical conditions, both mental health and physical, that can cause intuitive eating to be very difficult for some. And so obviously always consult with your pediatrician or a dietitian when you're having trouble feeding your child. But in general, if we're all born with this intuitive eating process wired into us, what gets in the way? Usually it's rules that are put on us, usually well-meaning, by our family of origin. Finish your plate. There's starving children somewhere that don't have food and you are wasting it. Take 3 more bites and then you can have a cookie. Do not eat so much sugar. Sugar is bad for you. No, you can't have seconds. You've already had enough. These are just a few examples. I'm sure you guys can think of things you heard growing up. Maybe it was different in your house, but the messages are the same and they stick with us. They really redesign how we interact with food and our body. Even when these things are said with love and good intention, they teach us and they teach our kids to override their internal cues. So Ellen Satter wrote The Division of Responsibility, and it's really simple and yet a genius way of looking at feeding. This approach says the parent decides the what, the when, and the where. Children decide whether and how much. So a parent decides what food is in their house, what food goes on the table, when you eat, and where you eat. The child has autonomy to choose whether they eat and how much they eat. This eliminates battles and it restores trust. So, what this might look like at dinner, we want to put a balanced plate out. So, we might put out a fruit and a vegetable and a carbohydrate and a protein and things like that. We're going to put out a variety of things. We want to make sure that there's something everyone likes, but not everyone is going to love every dish on the table, and that's okay. But we put it out there. And notice I said table. The where is important. There's a lot of studies have shown that eating undistracted, without TV, at a table with our family has a lot of benefits. And so sitting down, where we sit to eat, what we eat, and when. So providing regular meal times and snack times so that kids know food is coming. This helps their body begin to trust they will get what they need. Food neutrality is huge. I think it's very important for kids to understand that all foods have a place. Broccoli and brownies can both have a spot on the table. There's no food that's forbidden, but food is also not a prize. It's not given to calm our emotions. It's not given to be an award or taken away as a punishment, because that gives food power that it shouldn't have. Now, obviously, if you have a food allergy, those foods would not be on the table. We have to use our common sense with that. But for the most part, understanding a brownie is a brownie and broccoli is broccoli. Both provide the body something, and both are okay, and both have their place. It's extremely important for kids to look at it that way, and not the way that most adults do, good and bad, moral. Body awareness. This is hard. Maybe this is TMI, but I'm sitting here working today, have lots of people I'm seeing, lots of things to do, and all of a sudden I realize I have not been paying attention to my body, and I have got to pee so bad, and I have to run to the bathroom because I have waited. I probably had to pee an hour ago, but I wasn't paying attention to what my body was telling me. I taught myself to override it, to get through the grind of what I had to do. We don't want that for our kids, especially with food. So teaching them to be aware with questions like, is your tummy saying it's hungry? Is it full or in between? You can even have your child close their eyes and imagine their stomach as a circle. And they can imagine how far the food they've eaten has gone up based on how they feel. Giving kids language to describe sensations is extremely important, allowing kids to know that it's okay to pay attention to what their body feels, to take care of their bodies, to be attuned. I would say this one is probably one of the hardest ones. Modeling body respect. Kids learn more from what we do than what we say. No body bashing, no food guilt. Okay, so if you are a mom who grew up in the 90s, and I'll speak of that, I was born in 84. So in that time frame, we have had lots of people put before us, a lot of women put before us who were judged, given quality based on their looks, based on their body size, based on their abs, based on lots of different things. I'm thinking of people in my mind that were celebrities at the time that I won't mention, I don't by name, but we have all seen that. We learned at that time, a lot of us learned that our worth was somehow wrapped up in our gene size. And what we want to do is understand, we've got our own stuff to work through. As a dietitian who's done intuitive eating, mindful eating, eating disorder stuff, there is always going to be a time that you think you've done all the work, and then an old record pops into your head of something you'd forgotten you'd learned. And that's okay, but it's learning to recognize it and not put that on our children. Being willing to do our own work and being willing to give our children better. So, once we're modeling body respect, we can also create a low pressure mealtime. When we're not so focused on making sure our kids eat the perfect meal, or that we feel like we're good moms because they ate everything they're supposed to eat and that they're going to grow perfectly. We've done everything right. We've checked the box. But instead, when kids feel safe, they eat better. When they feel watched or judged, eating becomes emotional, the table becomes emotional, and people get frustrated. And so thinking through, not bribing your kids to eat, not bargaining with them, allowing them to choose how much and what of what you've provided is a huge part of having an intuitive eater. We want our meals to be relaxing. Chick-fil-A gave these out at one point, and you can get them. They have like little mealtime cards where you can have conversation starters. Some of them are silly, some of them are fun, some of them like would you rather. It's okay to keep mealtimes happy and going, and it's okay if your kid walks away from the table and all they ate were the strawberries you put out, because when they come back at snack, they're going to eat something else. We talked about modeling body respect. And I think that also comes down to focusing on our fears. So, a fear that I hear a lot is if I don't make my kid eat the meat on their plate or the broccoli on their plate, they're only going to eat carbs. They're only going to eat chicken nuggets. They'll never eat a vegetable, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be carbs. It can be any macro. But we get so afraid they're not going to get what they need. But, when kids are growing, it's normal for them at times to have a carb heavy phase, needing fast energy. Then they might have a protein heavy phase. It comes in cycles. And again, you can talk to your pediatrician and your dietitian, but sometimes it's better to not intervene and let them ride out those waves. My child came home the other day from school and they said, "Did you know sugar can cause XYZ awful things?" And she was literally pretty scared about it. And she's talking it through, and she said at the table, somebody was going around saying, "You have sugar in your lunch. You have sugar in your lunch. There's sugar in this food. There's sugar in that food." And made everybody feel kind of scared and a little upset about their mothers packing them this awful thing in their lunchbox, but also felt confused and guilty because they liked the food that was in their lunchbox. And so, this fear of sugar, this fear around, maybe what is it, where you try to like switch the witch or you take out the candy. I don't even know what it's called, but it creates obsession. Who's ever been on a diet? And as soon as you say you're going low carb, you cannot have XYZ, what does your mind start to do? It starts to think about it. It starts to think about how amazing it is. Again, it goes back to that kid at the table who's not allowed to have dessert at home, but at parties, he does not leave that snack table that has dessert. We want to create a healthy balance, a child that knows what it makes their body feel like, because if they're listening to their bodies, they'll know when they've had too much because it doesn't feel good. Fear of weight. This is 100% rooted in diet culture. We live in a society that equates thinness with health, and that equates thinness with success and everything positive. So, of course, we don't want our kids to be bullied. We don't want our kids to be made fun of. We want our kids to be healthy and happy and thrive. And so there can be a fear of, what if my child is allowed to eat in this way? And what if something happens with their weight? And what we want to focus on is behaviors, not numbers. Are you providing a balance of food? Again, you get to provide. Are you providing regular times for them to eat so they're not so hungry at mealtime? Maybe they overeat and it makes their tummy hurt. Kids come in natural, diverse body sizes. So we focus on behaviors, not numbers. So language swaps. Sometimes when a child says, "I want to eat more," instead of saying, "You just finished a huge plate," maybe it's good to redirect them to their body. "Is your tummy hungry?" What if we wait 5 minutes and we answer these questions we were doing together at the table, and if it's still hungry, let's get more? Or if a child asks for seconds of desserts, saying, "You don't need that right now." Instead, ask, what is your body saying? What are you feeling? We're responsible for putting food out. And the one thing I said was to make sure you always put out something a child likes. So if you're trying a new recipe, a new type of meat they've never had, a new vegetable, whatever it is, you want to offer it without pressure because they're going to be more likely to eventually try it. Sometimes kids have to see it multiple times, sometimes you have to try it multiple times before you really even know if you like it. But it'll definitely be a negative experience if the tone of trying that food is negative, if it's stressful, if there's pressure. And so making sure you keep offering foods without pressure and you know that picky phases will pass. And then again, desserts. I remember the fat-free craze, right? We took fat out of everything, which had such bad consequences, but people would eat tons and tons of fat-free desserts, and desserts became this fixation. And then we realized, oh, wait, that's not actually helpful. We're still eating a ton of sugar when you take the fat out. And so having a normal dessert, not this low fat, whatever it is, having a normal dessert and making it a part of mealtime. So it's not like, oh, we only have dessert on special occasions because it's special. Or if you do really good on your math test, then you can have a treat. We don't want to use dessert in that way. We want to try to take obsession away by making it available however feels right for your family. We want to help our kids learn this script. I said we all have these records in our head. We have these scripts in our head of how we were raised. The one we want our kids to have is your body is smart. It knows when it's hungry and it knows when it's full. You can trust it. We want our kids to know some days they might eat a lot and other days they might not eat as much, and that's okay. We want our kids to know they can trust what their body is telling them. And by teaching our kids to listen to cues, it also allows them to ask questions or to notice when something's different and ask the question of an expert. Hey, this has changed. Is this normal? Is this okay? It's okay to ask questions. I know this was quick, just like the adult intuitive eating last week, but I think it's important information. I appreciate you listening, and I want you to remember you don't have to be perfect. We just want to be consistent, gentle, and open. And so we're not going to always get it right, but we can always do our best. Some of this information came from Ellen Satter. There's also some really great other resources if you want more information. I'll put those in the comments section so that you'll know where to look to get more information. But you're doing an amazing job. Your kids are lucky to have a parent that cares this much. And keep up the good work. If you like it, subscribe, comment, and share. Thank you.